Okay, let's talk a little bit about chapter 19, number 11. Um, this problem just gives you a taste, and what a delectable taste it is, of how modeling various scenarios works. And it's a completely canned example, but it gives you some sense of how you implement some various assumptions about longevity, cost of illnesses, etc. And you will do it with a simple spreadsheet, but the models that are done in real life follow similar logic, only they're much more complicated. So they give us this information about population and healthcare costs, and then they ask us to implement various scenarios. And the first one is just given the information in the base case, is the system truly going to go bankrupt? And I prepared a bit of a spreadsheet, but I wanted to show you how I set that up. And what I did was, I've got it done up in the top, but I just wanted to show you how to do that. I started with a year. All these scenarios start in 2020, and then go on from there. And then we start with a balance, the beginning balance, and then after the beginning year, I'm going to use the model to figure out what happens to that. And then we have young people, just a number, old people, and very old. And then what money is coming in, revenues, and what money is going out. And then for future years, I'm going to just figure out what happens to the balance by taking the old balance, add the revenue, subtract the expenses. Now, what am I, on a quiz, what I would ask you to know, or test, what I would ask you to know is, hey, if I wouldn't ask you to do a whole spreadsheet, but I might ask you to say, hey, under these conditions, this initial balance, what's the balance in year 2, whatever. Or if this is year 0, 2020, year 1 would be 2021. So I just want you to know the basic logic, not necessarily, well, I won't ask you, given the time constraints of an exam, to do a whole spreadsheet worth of analysis. All right, so we start with 1 million. That's the terms of the problem. And we notice that, let me make sure I have 6 zeros there. 1, 2, 3. When I talk and type, bad things happen. So we have 100 young people. There's a 3-period model. There's 90 old people. And there's 50 very old people. And the survival rates will change in some of the later scenarios, but you'll notice that in the first scenario and most of the scenarios, the number of young, old, and very old stay the same. And in this base case, each young person pays $1,000 worth of taxes, and then the expenses are going to be $1,000 times every one of the old people, and there's 90 of those old people, but then expenses are also going to be 4,000 times every one of the very old people. So that's the case. The balance is going to equal what we had last year plus the revenues minus the expenses. And so we can see that the balance is shrinking over time. Let me see, I've got a discrepancy here. Oh, I undertaxed. I only taxed $100 instead of $1,000 each. All right, so now we're making sense. Now that's going to stay the same. and everything's going to stay the same. Let's see if I can drag this across. Sometimes it starts advancing things I don't want to advance. So that seems to be good. So let's see when it goes bankrupt. Still okay. Oh, there it is. So I just by dragging this lower right corner, I notice the hand and the plus turn into this dark plus. That means I can drag and all the formulas, etc., will be preserved and just implemented. So we see in 2025, the system goes bankrupt and the opponents are right. So now that's the logic of the endeavor. I can post this Excel spreadsheet so you can see how each formula was done. I won't walk you through step by step. For part B, now what we had for part B is this change in mortality rates. People are living longer, and we see that now the system runs out of money in one year sooner. And all I did here was change the survival rate so that 95% of young people stayed old. Oh, I see I made a mistake, right? We still only get 100 young people every year. So let's see, everything else look right. We had death rate of 36.84%. So yeah, that looks right. Now, why is that? Oh, because we started with 90 old people in the base case. I didn't change that base case. All right. So anyway, the system goes bankrupt one year quicker under Part B. Now, under Part C, it gets worse and worse. Now Part C, and I see I made that same mistake. Under Part C, people are still living longer. They're dying with lower probability. But now the healthcare expenses have gone way up, and we see that the system's going to go bankrupt in let's see, it lasts this base year, last 1, 2, it goes bankrupt in between the second and third year. So that's really bad news. Now, what are we going to do about it? That's the next scenarios. We go back to a base case in Part D. Part D asks us to think about various scenarios to save Social Security, and I don't have this dragged out 100, but we can see what's going on. Notice that now Part D cuts benefits. Basically, it raises the retirement age so that the old have to work and pay taxes, and they don't collect any public health insurance, and only the very old collect public health insurance. So our revenues go up by the number of old people. That's this number, B4 in the spreadsheet language, times 1,000. So the young people are paying in 1,000, B3 times 1,000 in this year, and then the old people are paying 1,000. So revenues are the combination of the young and the old paying taxes. Expenses are just the costs of taking care of the very old. And we see that this is not infinitely sustainable. We're losing 10,000 a year, and so we have $1 million starting balance. So we can go 100 years at this rate before bankrupting the system. So that helps the system stay solvent. It extends the solvency period from 5 years to 100, but you can imagine these old people are not real happy about having to work for such a high percentage of their life. So the next scenario asks us to think about the case where taxes are raised to $2,000 per young person, and then we restore health benefits to the old as well as the very old. And we see that here, this situation we get, looks like we get 11 and a half, 12 years out of the system before it goes bankrupt. So that's long. That's better than it was in the beginning case, but not all that long either. And then, of course, young people seeing their taxes doubled aren't very happy. So you don't need to follow each blow by blow. But now the stock market earnings are added to the taxes. Notice what I've done is young people are paying taxes 1,000 times however many young people there are, plus now 0.1, 10% times whatever the balance in the in Medisure is. But tax rates are back down to just 1,000. Well, we see that we only buy a couple years beyond the bankrupt in 2025 case that we saw in the base case. So now we're bankrupt between 2027 and 2028. So that didn't work. And then in part G, they ask us about immigration. What if we let 200 young people in who are going to pay taxes, but then we kick them out before they get old, and so they don't collect Medisure, healthcare payments. And in this case, we see the system is solvent. I'm trying to figure out why that balance grows there, where it wasn't growing here. Okay, I see it. Anyway, we don't need to worry about it. The bottom line is that now the situation is solvent. We have 300,000 coming in. We only have 290,000 going out. We should see a 10,000 increase in the balance. Why isn't that sustained? It should just go up, 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 up. Let me see. Well, there. That looks right. Yeah. So I don't know what was going on there, but now we just have an ever-growing surplus, and this is sustainable indefinitely. But of course, there's this anti-immigrant sentiment, and Part H that I didn't do any calculations for. Part H asks us how many immigrants does one need to make the system last till 2027. You start with $1 million balance, so you can afford to lose 125,000 a year. Each immigrant is let's see, if you don't have any immigrants, you're losing 190,000. So you need $65,000 to lose only 125,000, and so you need to let in 65 immigrants. Don't worry too much about that that last calculation. Again, what you might see on a test would just be, hey, if this is the balance and these are the mortality rates, these are the taxes, these are the healthcare expenses, what'll be the balance next year? That's the main logic, and you had it back at that beginning. Let me figure out how to stop this screencast. I'm using a little bit different technique so I can